Welcome to our Firestop Coffee Break training. In this session, I want to help you understand why Firestop special inspection is required. When we explained the different types of buildings that require special inspection, you saw that these are critical to the community in various ways. They could be a substantial fire risk because of the size of the building or the number of the people who could be in the building, or maybe both. Understanding that is one level of why the requirement is so important. To explain a few other reasons, let me walk you through a project. We're going to talk about Building B. This is your project. It's a 4-story wood frame multifamily residential building. So let's check in on your project. Who's installing Firestop in Building B? Let's say your trades are doing their own Firestop. So who's the lucky person that gets a tube of Firestop? It's going to be the new kid, right? The one who doesn't know how to lay pipe or pull wires. They give the life safety responsibility to the rookie who doesn't have a clue. What kind of training are they going to give the kid when it comes to Firestop? Now, this is a serious question. I mean, if they don't get any training, then how can you expect them to know what's needed, let alone how to follow a Firestop detail? Let's look at what your plumber is doing. So they've got this new kid on their team, and that's the person that gets to do the Firestop. The sprinkler contractor, he doesn't want to mess with the Firestop. So he made a deal with the plumber that the kid would take care of all the Firestop. And in exchange, there's going to be a cooler with a case of beer in the plumber's truck every Friday. So the kid has a tube of Firestop and takes care of all the orange sprinkler pipe and all the plumber stuff as well. A few days later, the inspector comes through and finds 2 things wrong. The kid assumes, hey, I did a good job. I only screwed up 2 things. I won't make those mistakes again, and I'm doing great. This Firestop stuff is easy. Now let's talk about what the inspector did when they were looking at the Firestop. They walked around and they looked to be sure that the Firestop was in place in the rated assemblies. Now let's look at the 2 things that the inspector caught. First, there was one pipe that the kid just missed. The other was a pipe where the kid was in a hurry and didn't get to the opposite side of the pipe. Let me help you picture this. So if this is the penetration and we looked at it as a clock face, the kid squirted the Firestop from about 2 o'clock, up across 12 o'clock, down around the bottom and back up to about 4 o'clock. So there's a gap right here, missing Firestop on one side, and the inspector caught that. Everyone is thinking, good job, kid. Just look a little bit closer and you're doing great. If this is what your Firestop special inspector is doing, this is a huge red flag. They are not following the special inspection standards. This is what a typical building official does. And I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with that, but this is one more reason that we need special inspection of Firestop. Because the level of scrutiny that the special inspector uses when they review the Firestop installations is so different from that of a typical building inspector. Let me explain what we would find if your special inspector did their job on this project. The plumber used the wrong material on the sprinkler pipes. You see, there are chemical compatibility issues with CPVC pipes, and there's considerable risk that the Firestop or even other non-compatible materials can etch holes in the pipe. It may take a few years, and if you're lucky, you'll find out because the sprinklers will leak, and then you'll have an opportunity to fix it. If you aren't lucky, then you won't find out until the sprinklers engage and the change in pressure causes the pipe to burst, and then the sprinklers can't function as they're designed. No one will know until it's too late. Now, how in the world can you expect a kid to know any of this? They're just going to use the product that the boss bought from the local supply shop. So let's change gears and assume that the local supply shop was sharp enough to ask a few questions and get them the right material. So we've eliminated the compatibility issue, but we still have a problem with the sprinkler installation. Let me explain. The sprinkler crew ran 1/2-inch lines and made 1-inch holes. Sounds good, right? Well, the problem is the outside diameter of the 1/2-inch PVC line is 0.84 inches. That means that there's only 1/8 of an inch to spare, so the pipe will fit right in the hole through the frame floor. Everyone thinks this is great because they're not going to use too much Firestop. Remember, that stuff's expensive, right? Give me a break. It's not $500 a pail anymore. The prices are totally different now. But the problem is the installation. When the inspector came through, they saw red stuff smeared around the pipe and they didn't ask any questions. The inspection passed. But the truth is, if there's a fire, there's considerable risk that this installation will fail and no one knows the difference. You see, the Firestop detail will require that the installer gets 3/4 inch of Firestop sealant in the annular space, the space between the wood framing and the plastic sprinkler pipe. There is no way that anyone can get sealant that depth in such a small space to work with. The fire stop sealant on plastic pipes is supposed to be intumescent. That means that it's going to expand and fill the gap when the plastic melts. But the way the kids install it, the sealant is just sitting on top of the framing. And in a fire, when it starts to expand, it's going to mushroom away from the plastic pipe rather than towards the middle of the hole. When it goes towards the middle of the hole, it can close down the space so that fire can't get through. One way the industry is changing in the 20 years since I started, something that reduces these sorts of concerns, is to have specialty fire stop installers. Projects with specialty installers are easier to deal with because when there are issues, there's one point of contact. The installers work with the fire stop, so they often know more than the various trades and they can figure out the right material for the right application. For example, most installers know that you can't use certain fire stop materials on plastic sprinkler pipes, but why would the plumber need to know anything about that? I'm a huge advocate of specialty installers. But then there was one more thing. I was talking with a fire marshal once, and in the discussion, she pointed out something I'd never thought about before. Do you think the electrician's insurance company is insuring them to do work related to life safety? Fire stop? It's a life safety issue, and it carries with it more inherent risk. Your electrician should be licensed to know about electrical stuff and codes and dangers and so much more. That licensing, however, doesn't require them to know anything about fire stop, but yet they're doing it, and often with no training. I will tell you, however, that this solution, hiring a specialty contractor to do the fire stop installation, it's only as good as the fire stop installer themselves. If the installer doesn't have the fire stop submittal, then I would suspect that they aren't looking at them when they're doing the installation. And if they're not looking at the fire stop details, I would also suspect that they would do the same kind of thing that the kid did. They'll just slap the fire stop on and not look back. With this story, you can see the value of having the right person doing the right task. You can also see how things can look good, but not be good. This is a common problem. The building official doesn't have the time to review the fire stop submittals and to compare it to the field installations. In the jurisdictions where they do have time to do this, they often are not even allowed to do destructive testing. And that is what would be required in order to determine whether or not the fire stop installation is done properly. The sprinkler contractor has the easiest scope when it comes to fire stop. So if the easiest scope could be installed so wrong, imagine how many other stories I could tell you that would involve each and every other trade. If I did that, it wouldn't be a coffee break training, it would be a whole PhD level program. That is why fire stop special inspectors are so important. Not just having somebody to fill the role, but having the right person on your job. As we work through this training, you'll learn just what that person should look like. If you have a good fire stop inspector, then they'll address this in the pre-construction meeting. But let's be clear here. A pre-construction meeting is a requirement of the inspection standards, but there's nothing saying what needs to be discussed. So I guess I shouldn't tell you what they should discuss. But seriously, I've done enough inspections that I try and help the team get things right, because the more they fail, the more work I have to do. And quite frankly, the more I fail the installer's work, the more they want to bring in someone else who just doesn't see the problems that I see. And that's not what my community needs. So special inspection of fire stop became a code requirement in buildings that are important to the community or have a higher risk if there's a fire. Every item in Chapter 17 that requires special inspection is an element of the building that is deemed to be critical to life safety. Fire stop is clearly integral to life safety. Special inspection of fire stop became a code requirement because most jurisdictions, the building inspector isn't allowed to do destructive testing. They don't have the time to scrutinize fire stop to the level required of the special inspection standards. Let's face it, they have to know the building code inside and out, and fire stop is one of the most complex elements of special inspection. Special inspection of fire stop is a way for a developer or an architect to defer liability, but only if they fulfill their duty and verify that the special inspector meets the requirement of the building code and that they follow the requirements of the inspection standards. This series is going to be a start to helping you understand what is required. You also want to have documentation of how you vet them, and if you'd like more information on that, please consider joining us for the longer course as well. The challenge now is to help those of you who want to ensure that things are done right. You need to know when it's necessary, how to ensure the special inspectors are both capable and qualified. We hope that this Firestop Coffee Break series gives you the skill and confidence to do all of that, at least on a preliminary level. If you want to up your game and have the tools to help you succeed, you could join us for the longer, more in-depth training, and we can share even more information with you to help you make sure that you have the right person on the team. Please know in advance that while we're more than happy to train our competitors, this training is not designed to help the special inspector to know how to do this work. It's not a bad start, but it's just a start. And it's certainly not good enough to get you all the information that you need if you're doing third-party special inspection of Firestop. So with that, it's time to launch into the building code once again. We'll see you for your next Firestop Coffee Break training, and we'll tear into 1705.17 once again. We'll see you there.